Hey, welcome. Welcome to the nap. This is just the pre-show. Give us an opportunity to debug anything. I think we've pretty well licked all our choppiness issues. Kept lowering the bit rate. I think we have it licked. So let's hope there's no problems on this show. So first things first, let's have a look at an old intro from the 5th of November and see if that brings back any political memories.
Why did the finance minister leave in place liberal hidden food taxes and force higher food costs on single mothers, seniors, and young Canadians?
On this side of the House, the answer is clear, Mr. Speaker. We will
Finance minister leave in place liberal hidden food taxes and force higher food costs on single mothers, seniors, and young Canadians.
On this side of the House, the answer is clear, Mr. Speaker. We will take no lessons from the Conservatives.
If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth.
Yesterday from the Prime Minister really freaking Conservatives.
Isn't he really just the most annoying politician ever? On this side of the house. Now, as always, all the intros pretty well have their middle body is mostly the same, with only a few additions being added here and there over the shows. But then as we get near the end, there's always something a little extra added.
It's going to
is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
Out of control spending on consultants. Last year alone, over $20 billion on well-connected liberal insiders getting contracts. And this year, I think the number said that it's going to go as high as $25 billion. Why won't they put Canadians first? Instead of asking young people to make sacrifices, why won't they cut out their well-connected friends, put Canadians first, and deliver a budget that Canadians can actually afford?
Madam Speaker, it's impressive the Liberals are actually recognizing Christmas. Canadians are being asked to pull the wagon through the mud while Liberal cronies ride comfortably on top. The government isn't worried about families lining up at food banks. They're too busy lining the pockets of insiders. They're not bothered with cutting home prices. They're too focused on cutting checks to bumbling bureaucrats. They don't care about rising debt and inflationary deficits so long as the money keeps flowing to the Liberal elites. When will this Prime Minister stop using tax dollars?
The House, the answer is clear, Mr. Speaker. We will take no lessons from the Conservative.
Spending. This is how we build the strongest economy in the G7. Tomorrow's budget will empower Canadians because this is your country and we decide what comes next.
Minister talks like the government's money belongs to him, and they call these taxes imaginary. They aren't imaginary when you're staring at your own credit card bill. The government's job is to listen to Canadians, not lecture them or gaslight them or threaten an election to distract them from the failures. Instead of trying to cause a costly election on a costly budget, why not an affordable budget for an affordable life?
From your testimony, what you've shared.
Before we get on to this one here, this is one on veterans. Why is this not
sanctuary trauma,
Oh, I
where
know
the
why.
organization has.
There we go. Yes, just a short video here on vets. That'll probably take us right into very close to the 15-minute marker before the start of the show. So let's do that.
From your testimony, what you've shared a bit of what we've heard. From your testimony, what you've shared a bit of what we've heard from other witnesses about sanctuary trauma, where the organization is supposed to be there to help you. Whether you're an RCMP officer or a military veteran, could you please expand on what your experience has been with that yourself?
Yeah, so I think whether you're Canadian Armed Forces or RCMP, you take an oath, and it's a very deep thing. It's life-changing. And you commit yourself on a level that no other employee is expected to commit themselves. And you do so with the understanding that it is service that is taken very seriously by this country. You're going to do unbelievable things for your country. And the result is that you're going to be supported when you inevitably have unbelievable damage from that commitment for the good of your country. So with that comes an expectation that we accept we have these injuries, and we turn to somewhere like Veterans Affairs to try make us healthy once we've left, and to have your service judged, to have your injury judged or questioned, and to not have any support in your options. It feels very much like you receive a check once a month to compensate for the damage caused to you, and that is all you're going to get for the rest of your life. When all we really want is support to try get us to a healthy place where we can be a new form of employee, where we can be a healthy parent, where we can be a healthy spouse.
Thank you. That was an amazing
My name is Gilles, and I'm a veteran of 38 years in the Canadian Armed Forces. I was diagnosed with PTSD, and before I could get any help, we were pushed out because we refused an injurious injection, causing a moral injury on top of the PTSD. As a result, I was incapable of tapping into any benefits whatsoever after being released. Because of this moral injury, I was quite beside myself and really wasn't able to even partially come out of it until very recently in this year, when I finally was able to start making some videos, whereby I explained in the very first video that you'll see inserted here, linked below, what they did to us in the Canadian Armed Forces. What this woman explains here in this video is the very reason why so many of us have given up even trying to contact the VA and feel that our country, Canada, has abandoned us. In fact, Canada, the Liberals have abandoned your country because of what they are doing to your people that gave of themselves, that served their country, and have been treated and continue to be treated like this. What are we on? The 8th Veterans Affairs Minister? They are a joke. The Liberals are a joke. If you don't have a military, Canada, someone will bring one in for you. This is how you're treating your veterans. This is how you're treating your Canadian Armed Forces members when you release them. Good luck, Canada. I hope this tanks your recruiting, because you are destroying people's lives. The Liberals are a death cult, and they don't care about you, and they don't care. How prophetic, eh? I was talking about if you don't have a military, another country will bring one in for you. Well, the Liberals aren't even waiting. They're going to other countries and bringing in their military to replace ours actively. Care about their Canadian Armed Forces members. Please listen to her testimony. It's from today. And every day, we veterans are reminded how much Liberals are traitors to your country and to we veterans, period.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with all of you today. I wear many hats in relation to this issue and will attempt to speak to all of them in this short time. I am a veteran with post-traumatic stress disorder and depression. I was a civilian member intelligence analyst of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and spent most of my service working on homicides and national security. My PTSD from the trauma exposure is real, but many times it was discounted in comparison to Canadian Armed Forces service or regular members of the RCMP. This included comments from Veterans Affairs employees stating that I am taking away resources from veterans who have lost limbs. My experience was consistent that mental health injuries are not treated or respected the same way as physical ones. I can echo much of the testimony you've heard about processes being difficult to navigate and taking too much time. My initial decision took about a year, which is actually very good. And I needed the assistance of Bureau of Pension Advocates, which is a fantastic service, to receive a fair decision a couple of years later. Once I began having children, I realized that PTSD in either parent makes for added challenges during childbirth. At the recommendation of my psychologist and midwife, I applied to Veterans Affairs to cover a doula to help manage my PTSD during childbirth. This is a readily provided support the call. After a 5-minute conversation, they could all understand how little I was asking for and how much benefit it would provide. However, processes reign. I applied in fall 2024. I provided my rationale. I provided medical documentation. I provided research papers attesting to the benefit for PTSD. I looked into any possible healthcare professional that could assess me and verify my claim, but I lived in the north, so my options were limited. I'm awaiting the result of my final level of appeal, and my daughter was born over 6 months ago. I walked in to meet with a Veterans Affairs representative just days before I went into labor. They suggested that the local Legion pay. This is charity I was not comfortable taking. I sought assistance from the Bureau of Pension Advocates, and they provided helpful advice for my appeals, but said they can't help with treatment benefits. I believe this to be a major gap. This one story is exactly the type of battle and weight that veterans and families face when seeking support from Veterans Affairs for service injuries or death. To sum it up, it's onerous, isolating, adversarial, and damaging. I am also the spouse of a veteran. To respect his privacy, I won't be sharing much about my personal experience in this regard. However, almost every day, I grieve for my husband before his injury. And I support him and maintain my in that I have that for my these end up commitments. Knowledge of PTSD and policing has gotten me through unbelievable circumstances. I've accessed counselors through VAC Assistance Service who describe my family as in crisis and that they don't know how to help us when we're just surviving. I am also a mother. I see the impact of our service already on my very young children. I worry about their ability to access mental health care in their own right one day. I also think it's important to note that you're hearing from survivors and spouses, but the experience of children is lacking to date. I am the co-administrator of an informal support group for spouses of RCMP members and veterans with PTSD. Our group has approximately 700 members. I invited others to testify before you, but the stigma is still significant. So you'll hear from myself and Jessica Ruth only, despite strong following and support for this issue from the group. Until spouses find the group, many feel isolated and are in complete disbelief what their life has become. Divorce is all too common of an outcome, and other women have lived with decades of abuse as they attempt to honor in sickness and in health. The point I would like to make is that almost every unbelievable story is accompanied by multiple responses saying, "I completely understand and have been through similar," and then recommending counseling. Not only do we have the role of caregiver to our veteran, but we often have the absence of a caregiver, as the veteran may struggle with the capacity to provide the typical support of a spouse. It is not sufficient to fund mental health care for spouses as a caregiver. Most of the spouses I've met struggled with their member's PTSD before the member accepted their condition. Most have struggled when their member or veteran refused further treatment. Many still struggle after divorce. Mental health care in their own right can be a lifeline for the veterans' well-being and can help their family to be healthy and continue to contribute to our communities in their own way as nurses, teachers, social workers, and other important roles. Finally, I am the organizer of petition E6654 and co-organizer of improving mental health care for families and survivors of CAF and RCMP. The petition was inspired by Jessica Ruth, who you heard from. What we're asking for is something the veteran ombudsman recommended for nearly a decade: service-related mental health treatment for families in their own right. It's unconscionable that families are still waiting to be offered more than short-term counseling and lip service when they contribute so significantly to veteran well-being and often provide support to the veteran well beyond their years of service. The veteran community is watching. We are encouraged to see senators asking the minister about progress on this recommendation. Yet we experience more sanctuary trauma when the question is answered repeatedly with a simple, "There is more for us to do." I've received more informed answers from MPs on and off this committee. It's easy to say the minister is new, but we all know there is a team of professionals behind her that are meant to prepare her for these questions. The bureaucracy continues to fail veterans and their families. True prevention would start with a similar study focusing on RCMP and CAF individually. For the purposes of Veterans Affairs, though, I want to leave you with the simple answer to suicide prevention and answer two questions asked by members of this committee already. MP August, you've been asking for innovative approaches to preventing suicide. Sadly, VAC hasn't even figured out the basics yet. It's so fundamental that the experts don't mention it. Fund mental health treatment for families independent of the veteran before death so they have the skills and capacity to support the veteran. MP Wagenthal, you asked if there is anything you should be doing immediately to help. Provide mental health treatment to families before suicide so they can help their veteran. Fund mental health care after the veteran's death so that the suicide effects don't ripple through families, as we know they do. Thank you.
On a side note, I actually did contact Veterans Affairs last week, asking them to have somebody call me so I can get some help. Mental health. Still waiting for a call back. It's been over a week. Right. Well, we can see what their solution to those problems was, didn't we? That was it's not to care about the veterans or the troops, and just to offer them aid to get rid of them, and then just replace them with foreign mercenaries. Well, so our next little video before we start.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister stands to make tens of millions of dollars in future bonus pay from three.
There we go. That's better. Okay, before we start this, as you can see, we're down to 11 minutes and so much before the show actually starts, where we'll just go straight into the intro. Yeah, this video is not going to take us there. So let's get started.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister stands to make tens of millions of dollars in future bonus pay from three investment funds that he registered in Bermuda and the Cayman Islands. So a simple question, how many other investments does the Prime Minister have in offshore tax havens?
Good question. The Honourable Government House Leader.
That member knows very well that all members in this House must abide by some of the strictest, most stringent ethics rules in the world. The Prime Minister has not only met but exceeded his requirements under those ethics guidelines, Mr. Speaker, and he will continue to do so.
The honourable member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Mr. Speaker, expert testimony reveals that the Prime Minister's company, Brookfield, is the biggest tax dodger in Canada, having avoided paying a staggering $6.5 billion in taxes
in just 5 years. As chair of Brookfield, the Prime Minister registered 3 investment funds in Bermuda and the Cayman Islands in which he stands to make millions. So again, how much does the Prime Minister have in offshore tax havens?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, Canada lives under the most stringent and strong ethics guidelines for designated public office holders in the world. All members must comply with these requirements. These requirements are met very transparently, including the Prime Minister's, which is all, of course, available for the public to view. These ethics guidelines in Canada are strong, and we should be proud of that, Mr. Speaker.
For St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals speak of a stringent and robust regime, yet the Prime Minister's company, Brookfield, registered multiple funds to a bike shop in Bermuda, all to avoid paying taxes in Canada, a bike shop. The Prime Minister is dodging a simple question, so I will ask it again. How much money does he have in offshore tax havens? Just a number, please.
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, on April 28th, Canadians had a choice between a leader with world and business experience versus a leader with no experience outside of this House. Canadians spoke loud and clear. They elected a leader that's going to build Canada, invest in Canada. They elected a leader that's going to make Canada the strongest economy in the G7. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister refuses to come clean about his offshore tax havens. Meanwhile, he lectures young Canadians that they need to sacrifice more. Well, after 10 years of these Liberals, they can't afford food, they can't afford rent, they have nothing left to give. So when will the Prime Minister park his hypocrisy, come clean, and tell us how much cash he has stashed in offshore tax havens?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, while the party opposite is focused on their leader, we're focused on Canada. We're focused on building our economy the strongest in the G7. Mr. Speaker.
I've never seen anybody more obsessed with the Conservative Party leader in a lower house other than Wayne Long. Every time he stands up to answer, he's always waving his short little arms and talking about being over there and this being over here and get on with it and join Team Canada and stop being obstructionists. And it's just quite the caricature.
I couldn't hear. So if the Honourable Secretary of State would like to start from the top, that would be ideal.
Start from the top.
Mr. Speaker, the party opposite has had a bad week. We understand that. They're focused on their leader and they're focused on a revolting caucus. But on this side of the House, we are focused on building Canada. We are focused on investing in Canada. On November 4th, we will come forth with a budget that will invest, build our economy into the strongest into the G7. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Right before we get into the next video to take us into the start of the intro, we will finish this one.
If the Conservatives want
and see how, sorry about that. Just go back and see how obsessed they were with trying to force the Conservatives to call an election. And sorry about that. I had a debugging stream for this one here. We still have. Oh, we're finally up. Yeah. Okay. Well, I had a debugging stream, and I keep turning down the bit rate continually every time this happens, and it seemed to be happening every half hour. Now it's happening every 50 minutes. Let's hope it stops. So, So apparently the Liberals really, really wanted the Conservatives to call a Christmas election after putting out the last budget. I don't think they expected the budget to pass, which is why they didn't put any particulars in. And then when the budget passed, they were like, oh, crap, we actually have to follow through on this thing. So, and I think that's why everything's pretty well buggered. So anyways, just put this video to take us into the intro, and then we'll get on with the show.
If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth.
And there's another celebration coming, and that's Christmas.
The only people who seem to want a Christmas election is this Liberal government.
With the leader of the opposition, that Grinchy guy, time after time after time after time.
And help us avoid a Christmas election that absolutely nobody wants.
Will they vote for a Christmas election that nobody wants?
And not support our budget and cause a Christmas election?
Support the budget and avoid a Christmas election.
This and the Christmas election.
So we can avoid a very destructive rather than avoid Christmas.
Avoiding a Christmas election. I hope that they will join us in avoiding a Christmas election by supporting the budget.
Speaker, I hope the members opposite will support this budget, avoid a Christmas election.
And we trust they will join us and vote for the budget and avoid a Christmas election. Thank
Can
you.
help us pass the budget and avoid a Christmas election. Will they do that?
The only thing more frightening this Halloween than the Conservatives' disinformation in this House is a Christmas election which nobody wants. They're going to force a Christmas election upon Canadians. There's nothing more spooky than that.
Minister of Finance.
We listen to Canadians, something that the Conservative may want to do a bit more. And what Canadians have told us, Mr. Speaker, is affordability is the first concern. The second is housing, and the third is the economy. What have we done, Mr. Speaker, while the leader was away? The first thing we did for Canadians was to reduce taxes for 22 million Canadians, Mr. Speaker. Everyone got a raise on Canada Day, Mr. Speaker. The second thing, we removed GST on first-time home buyer, Mr. Speaker. And we are going to build with Canadians, with every Canadian, the strongest economy in the G7. That's what this Liberal government is about.
Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised by my colleague's question. Not only did we listen to the Conservative constituents and all Canadians, they told us one thing, Mr. Speaker, tackle the cost of living. And the first thing our government, Liberal government, did was to lower tax for 22 million Canadians, Mr. Speaker. That's money back in the pockets of people in his riding, Mr. Speaker. The second thing that the Canadians asked us to do is to build affordable homes. And yesterday, Mr. Speaker, we launched Build Canada Homes to help more families. On this side of the House, we're going to work to build the strongest economy in the G7. The Honourable Mr. Speaker, what young Canadians and Canadians in general want is obviously to be able to have an affordable life in Canada, to be able to buy a home and an affordable home, and also to have a resilient economy for the future. Because on this side of the House, we've always understood that the best thing we can do is to build a strong economy for all Canadians. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, I can tell you that the Liberals will work together to build the strongest economy, to make life affordable for Canadians, build more homes, make Canada, Mr. Speaker, the best economy in the G7.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for his excellent work. Indeed, this major project will increase capacity at the Port of Montreal by about 60%, Mr. Speaker, by providing Eastern Canada with the commercial infrastructure to ensure the flow of goods With the creation of the Major Projects Office, we're moving from vision to action. Our government is committed to delivering transformative projects that not only create thousands of good jobs, but also connect our diverse regions and stimulate new industries. Mr. Speaker, that's how we're going to make Canada the strongest economy in the G7.
Mr. Speaker, I have good news for the member. That is a very real issue, and that's why we have a very real answer, Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House.
Not broken, falling behind. 57 are reporting they have no money left at the end of the month. 4 in 10 fear they will never pay off their debt. Mr. Speaker, they literally have 1 foot in the grave and 1 on a banana peel.
If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth.
Speech yesterday from the Prime Minister really freaked these Conservatives out because they saw the ambition in that speech. And not only did they see it in that speech today, as the Prime Minister stood with the Premier investing in new nuclear to ensure the jobs of today and the future, they know that the youth...
The only thing that's revolting are those answers.
Speaker, we will take no lessons from these Conservatives. Trust me on that.
The Minister didn't write the Prime Minister's speech yesterday because it wouldn't have bored and depressed to tears.
It's really hard to follow, isn't it, Mr. Speaker?
All of those poor students stuck in that room. There he spoke about how they would have to sacrifice more and that it would take time to reverse all of the misery that is built up over the last 10 years. Mr. Speaker, young people want to have homes. They want to have jobs. They want to have hope. They want a budget that is affordable so they can have a life that is affordable. Will the Prime Minister introduce that budget so that Canadians can restore the promise of their country?
And we decide what comes next.
No.
That this government has their back.
Are driving inflation. The more Liberals spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. 25% of Canadians are using food banks because they can't afford to eat. So when will the Prime Minister finally get his inflationary deficits under control so Canadians can put food on the table?
Mr. Speaker, Conservative members pretend to care about food insecurity, but then they call feeding children garbage.
Mr. Speaker, what's garbage was that answer?
Did the Prime Minister see the ad before it went out?
Hey, of course there are too many people living in poverty in Canada, but there are significant initiatives being put in place by this government.
Being serious means being honest.
Mr. Speaker, the grand reveal has been made.
Canada's economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
Sets us up well for the new world order.
Another Liberal.
Mr. Speaker, 11 years? I just got here.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister may pretend he just got here like he's a temporary foreign worker or something, but in reality, he's the same Liberal House leader, the same Liberal finance minister, the same Liberal Justice Minister, who was the Immigration Minister that broke the entire system, that are running it into the ground today.
Mr. Speaker, I just got here.
I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well.
Enough of that intro. Terribly sorry about that choppiness. I keep bringing down my bit rate for the stream, and I don't know if I can bring it down any much more. I think I'm down to like 1,000 bit rate, and Anyways, it seems to be getting worse and worse, but CPU keeps spiking. Maybe on this particular scene on OBS, it'll be better. Anyways, welcome to the NAP, the no answer period, where we cover the question period prefaced by a review of the far left evil that has beset our land and the events that surround it. The no answer period precedes the question period by 45 minutes, and we'll cover the lower house until the government decides to stop showing up. We also keep score during the show, during the question period. The description on how we keep score is down below in the description for the video. We're streaming on 3 platforms, Rumble, X, and YouTube. And I'd like to thank all my followers and subscribers for doing so. Got another subscriber today. Very ecstatic. I'm so happy, so grateful. Give us a little notification. If you leave a comment, that's also good. Comments drive the algorithm. When I'm not driving down with my abusive, with my forbidden words. I got abuse on the brain, maybe because I've been suffering so much. Anyways, let's get on with the show. So, our latest video that you saw the advertisement for, or didn't really see the advertisement for, because again, I see it's only a little copy again. Why are you going choppy? There's no reason. No reason whatsoever for going choppy. No reason whatsoever there for going choppy. So let's bring down the bit rate down to 750. Maybe that'll fix it. And we can do that live. There we go. Apply. Okay. So this keeps going on. We might have to reboot. I don't really want to do that in the middle of the show. Now, of course, our videos are out on our other channels like so, and let's get on to the House. So if anyone doesn't know, in the lower house, a order paper comes out every day. This is managed by Steven MacKinnon, the Liberal House leader appointed to lead the lower house, and he has a staff appointed to him, and they just put together all the questions that have been put, and who gets to ask what questions, what bills get put forward, because they all have to come through the lower house and get forward, then who gets questions. So he'll go to the opposition and say, okay, you guys get this many questions this day, and then it's up to the party whips to decide who's going to ask those questions in the lower house, in the House of Commons during question period. And as we can see, the House is not going to be sitting till 2 o'clock this afternoon, and other committee meetings that were scheduled to start, some of them have already been canceled. Standing Committee on National Defense. Oh, no kidding. I wonder why that is. A lot of stuff coming out on defense issues recently, perhaps. Let's see. Standing Committee on Human Resources, Skills, and Social Development Status of Persons with Disabilities. Maybe because people are tired of being offered aid, or the fact that people with status of disabilities and all that are just being pushed aside for their replacements that are coming in. And this one here was suspended. Standing Committee on Human Resources, Skills, Development, Social. Well, okay. That's the same one was suspended down there. Oh, it's canceled now. Hey. All right. Well, also as a reminder, if you're watching mainstream media, then you are being subjected to Qualified Canadian Journalism Organization, which provides tax credits of 27 to 30 grand per year per employee of that media organization. So therefore, Liberals get to pick their winners, who's going to be broadcasting the propaganda for them. So remember that next time you think the mainstream media is going to give you news. Oh, if I haven't heard it in the mainstream media, it can't be a real thing. We always think that, right? Until somebody of import actually repeats what we know in our brains to be true, we don't seem to accept it as true for some reason, even though it's right in front of our eyes. Now, this is an older post when the government plans to boost the Canadian forces with foreign recruits. This is not a new story. It's been in the news. It makes no sense at all. I mean, if you can't put troops in your boots, then you don't really have a military. Now, and then, of course, in the same breath, they're saying after U.S. threats, Canadian military recruits surge by 13%. Well, it can't be much of a surge. Now, the problem with our recruiting surges is that the military has a racist hiring quota, and they have quotas to meet. And if those quotas aren't being met, well, I'm sorry, if you're the wrong skin color or the wrong ideology or the wrong religion, you're not getting into the military, because the military used to be an organization based on merit, but not anymore. It's a organization based on how quickly you can refill the tampon dispenser in the men's room. Now, last week, our new Liberal government announced Build Canada Homes. Latest agreement. Yeah. in BC and across the country are accelerating the construction of affordable homes with Canadian workers, Canadian materials. Yeah, affordable homes. When he means affordable homes, he means homes that are affordable to who? Not the people to purchase them, maybe to rent them, because they're putting them all on Crown land. They were big on announcements yesterday now saying, oh, we're building homes in Valcartier and Kingston and Gagetown and Ottawa. And yes, all those bases have needed new base housing for like 20 years. And in the close to 40 years I spent in the military, I could see those same houses that were built World War II. They must have changed their windows on them about half a dozen times. During the time I was on the base, in and off, working there as a civilian, and then back there working as a military person, like from what 1982 till I guess the last time I left in 2005. Yeah, so that entire time, being on and off, I was like, "What are they changing the windows on these PMQs again?" That's private married quarters. If you know what that acronym is. So this entire thing, these announcements, the homes that they're building, really, it's not working because the CMHC is basically saying that our economy's on life support and nobody can afford houses. And it's like anything else. If the government is in the job now of actually having to provide homes and bragging about providing food stamps, having to borrow money to provide food stamps, which makes me to ask, like that $2 billion we sent to Ukraine, if we have to borrow $1.3 billion to provide food stamps for Canadians, that means we have to borrow that $2 billion for Ukraine. That bloody weird, eh? Anyways, getting back on the Liberal housing failure, they just keep doubling down on this.
So, does the Prime Minister dispute the CMHC's findings? And if he doesn't, will he admit that he made a promise he knew he could never keep? And Mr. Speaker, we all know what that's called.
The new world order. The new world order. The new world order.
Yeah, so that was just a wrap up of all the housing questions from the last week they sat in Parliament. So that was, it's not last week, it would be the week before. That was the last week that they sat in. And so if you want to get all the skinny on all the questions that are being asked and all the non-answers being provided, this video doing. There we go. I think I just lost both. I guess we're going to the next one. We still doing this again? Yep. Apparently, this scheme keeps getting some issues. All right, let's bring this down. Output. I don't know. Is the stream going to work with 500 bitrate? Let's see. Let's see if it does. Watching myself on TV on the other side of the house. And I seem to be paused. Because I'm looking at myself paused before. All right. Looks like it's working. Insane in the membrane. All right. National Post physician receptionist summoned before rights tribunals for addressing new walk-in patient by the pronoun listed on their medical records, writes Amy Ham. This is getting out of control. This is getting out of complete control. They want to control absolutely everything. I mean, it's bad enough they want to control what's in your brains. So just says, don't forget about the trans person who took the Edmonton Police to Human Rights Tribunal because they were misgendered over the phone and won $30,000. So they're being taught that being a victim pays. Right? This is entirely in keeping with the cultural Marxist ideology that promotes the victim-oppressor narrative and continually foster itself within society. And this causes chaos. And of course, the far left love the chaos because it distracts from their money laundering and stealing of the of the treasurer and the purse. Here's because this is called projection. Now, this was after the Tyler Rich situation, I believe. Oh, no, he said it was, yeah. So I was woken to visit the home of the killer countless times, but were too afraid to arrest for fear of being called transphobic. Oh, I see the chatter slowed down a bit there. Well, let's bring up our settings again. And bring this down another 100 to 400. I don't know. This is really weird. Okay. And looking at the stream and making sure that that choppiness that I'm seeing is related from the last choppiness. Yeah, okay. All right, it seems to be working. Jesus, sorry, folks. I really apologize for the crappiness of my internet connection, which is also causing me issues because I live near the base, and the base sucks up all the internet bandwidth around here. So Evan Solomon, he was like, I immediately summoned OpenAI officials to Ottawa for reasons because I want to know the details about their escalations and thresholds. I want to give them details of what their protocols are, what they are specifically in Canada, because Canadians demand safety. It's always about safety with the far left, right? And I will get more information from them on Tuesday. No, it's like Ezra said, it's projection. Policies are creating this. These people have issues, and you're not dealing with the issues. In fact, you're coddling them. You're just making it worse and blaming some other system that was supposed to warn people when there were already warnings evident. I mean, I think the warnings were there when the psychiatric community had a name for those people before the political ideology decided to decide what the psychiatric world was going to call those people. Well, here's Sarah Westall. Doctors are now offering death instead of treatment. A young girl went to hospital saying she felt unsafe with herself. Instead of care, she was asked if she'd considered assisted suicide. Yeah. So when death is offered before treatment, chemo, hospice, or palliative care, that isn't healthcare. It's system collapse. It's eugenics. And it's what the liberals are actively engaged in. You know, people don't even bat an eye. It's just, there was a passing comment yesterday in Parliament where Pierre Poilievre mentioned that 100,000 Canadians have died waiting for healthcare in Canada, whether it's dying in the emergency room or dying alone or dying at home, waiting just to see a specialist or their next doctor's appointment or just to see anybody who cares. No. And Sherry, the video that I had yesterday showed that 14.7 million Canadians are expected to be euthanized from 2027 till 2037, saving healthcare $14.7 trillion. Or sorry, $1.4 trillion. Regardless, it's disgusting. It's not providing healthcare. It's treating everyone like a carbon credit, like the bottom line, which is why the left never has any ethics or morals. Because if you don't have ethics or morals, you don't have to worry yourself with things like, you know, caring for life. You know, life doesn't matter. Money matters. Non-spiritual things matter, I guess, because most people on the left also don't have a higher power. They don't believe anything greater than themselves. They think they are it. That's why they all act with such hubris. Now, U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer tells CBC News that a new CUSMA deal would involve U.S. tariffs on Canada. If Canada wants to agree that we can have some level of higher tariff on them while they open their markets to us, that's a helpful conversation. Let's just listen to what he says.
Oh, sorry. Can we just ask you, what's the status of talks with Canada right now?
So right now with Canada, they have a new chief negotiator that will meet our chief negotiator. I'm in contact with Dominic LeBlanc, who's Minister of Commerce in Canada. There are, we keep in contact. They express an interest in having some kind of alternative deal. Right now, again, as I mentioned earlier, we're quite focused on reshoring supply chains related to automotive, steel, and aluminum. We've shipped 300,000 metric tons of steel more last year than we did the year before. We made more steel than Japan did last year for the first time in decades. That's what we're focused on. if Canada wants to come in and participate in this type of reshoring we're trying to do, we're happy to have those discussions.
What do you mean by that, participate in the reshoring? What do you mean?
Well, what I will say is when we go to other countries and we make a deal with them, the other countries, they agree that we can have a tariff on them, that we can have a protective tariff to protect our industries as we try to reshore, and they open their markets to us. If Canada wants to agree that we can have some level of higher tariff on them while they open up their markets to us and things like dairy and other things, then that's a helpful conversation. We have very open lines of communication. We'll keep talking. I tend to try not to negotiate in the press or anything like that, and we have discussions ongoing. So if something happens, I'll let you know.
But isn't the point of USMCA so there aren't tariffs? Isn't that the point of USMCA?
The concern about USMCA is that when we put it into effect, the hope was that there would be more critical supply chains reshored to the United States. There'd be more U.S. content. We actually ended up seeing cars increase from Mexico and that kind of thing. There's a lot of good in the deal, but there are a lot of things where reshoring didn't happen fast enough. U.S. content didn't happen fast enough. We think that if we want to have that deal, you need to have better rules, stricter rules to make sure that there's more U.S. content in what we have. We don't want a situation where countries like Vietnam or China can send a bunch of stuff to Canada, do a screwdriver operation, and send it across the border to the United States duty-free, right? And we know that Canada has talked about having closer ties, economic ties with China. I don't want a situation where Canada is being used as a backdoor for Chinese goods. I mean, there are a lot of issues like that would have to be resolved.
Mr. Bear, can I ask you about these tax?
Ambassador,
a lot of people didn't understand what Trump was doing when he came into office. But some of us, it was quite obvious. And they telegraphed at the time what it was for. And that was to re-centralize a lot of the industry that had left the United States over the years back into their own borders. Because over the years, this whole idea that if you could expand industry that was built up and established within the West to other outlying areas that were second and third world, not necessarily third world, then perhaps you would imbue democracy upon them as well. It's the old magic dirt concept, except there is no such thing as magic dirt. If you don't know what the magic dirt concept is that whenever you have somebody come into another land, into another country, as soon as they set foot on that soil, automatically imbued with magical powers that gives them the same morals and ethics and legal values as the people in the country that they just entered. There's no such thing. Same thing whenever you export your businesses, hoping that they would become more democratic. No, it didn't work. Especially didn't work in China. All it did was make them richer and more arrogant. So, of course, the United States is saying, no, let's bring that back. So one of the ways to do this was to use tariffs. And the other thing as well was to stop the drain of resources leaving his nation in the ways of providing defense. And he said it very obviously. Everyone else is getting a free ride, not spending money on their defense, depending on the United States to come in and save the day so that they can spend money on socialism. And here in Canada, I see just a little. Just a second here. Wait for this stuttering to resolve. Let's get back into settings. And back into settings. And change your output. Bring it down to 300 kilobytes. Okay. If that does anything in picture quality. I don't really care too much about the picture quality. It's just if we could get the stream to stop stuttering. Well, like I was saying, Trump, of course, with his tariffs, has decided that all you countries that were riding on our defense posture are going to have to start funding your military as well. Now, throughout this entire thing, you got to remember, Carney was elected back in April because he was the only man who could deal with Trump. He was the only man who could get a deal. And apparently now Canada is the only country aside from China that never managed to get a deal with the United States whatsoever. Now, of course, this is Trump boasting. He said, well, all those countries that we made tariff deals with, they're feeling pretty lucky now that they got a deal because now they'll have to renegotiate another deal. In this case here, Canada missed the boat. You know, the Liberals have spent multiple amounts of times trying to get deals and understandings with other countries all over the planet, and they've only spent a fraction of that time trying to resolve our trade issues with our largest trading partner affecting the majority of the country. Why? So they can use them as scapegoats. And of course, the press, the media, the QCJO media have been going along quite well, demonizing anyone who disputes how currently has been not dealing with our trade issue with the United States. Of course, it makes him richer. He doesn't care. The murder is not the United States, right? So he doesn't care if this affects him at all. So, with these talks coming up, I've seen as they've buggered up all the trade talks part of that, know them by what they do. And that just tells me that they are going to screw it up big time. Keep getting a lot of weird calls from different places. Here's John L. Burked Up Patriot. Today, licensed gun owners across Canada received emails warning them to surrender illegally owned firearms or face criminal prosecution. Let that sink in. Law-abiding Canadians, people who followed every rule, are now being told to hand over billions of dollars of personal property because Ottawa changed its mind. No vote, no real consultation and compensation that many see as either uncertain or insulting, even if it comes. Canadians don't remember, it's not just the guns that were laid out in the actual legislation when they pieced it together, because it's horrible as it was, but then an order in council added another 1,200 weapons to the list on their own, without consultation, just because, you know, they look scary. Because it's all about feelings when it comes to the far left and everything that they do. That's nothing to do with collecting data to get some research to say what you're doing is actually going to end up in results, because everything the Liberals do, they avoid collecting data because they know the results are not important. It's spending the money that's important. It's the virtue signaling that's important. It's the presentation of them being the saviors of Canada. As long as they can keep being reelected so they can keep spending money that we don't have to make them themselves and their friends rich, that's what they'll keep selling. And this entire thing of confiscating property from law-abiding citizens who are responsible for a fraction of a fraction of firearms use in crimes, a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. Believe the cops have said this is useless. You know, there was a whistleblower interview over at Northern Perspective, our RCMP officer. He's telling them, cops are leaving. RCMP cops are leaving. They're saying this is stupid. First off, they're being made to look like a bunch of clowns with all the political decisions that they had to do. I mean, if you watch the ostrich farm situation at Universal Ostrich Farms, they had to bring in a padre to deal with the moral injuries the cops are facing because of what the politicians are putting them through. I know what that's like, having been in an office, having subordinates coming up to me and saying, "Why are they doing this to us?" And I'm like, "It's orders, same orders I got to follow." And they're psychopaths, and you can't change their minds, which is why I have to get it. Which is what ended up happening. Now, Canadian refugee in Ecuador, if you don't know who this person is, maybe I'll do another show on him. But actually, I interviewed him for an article almost 20 years ago. I learned just how dark that underbelly was when Canadians collectively decided to destroy our lives for refusing medical experimentation. Realized that most Canadians are no better than Nazi-era Germans was a real punch to the gut. Of course, Canadian refugee in Ecuador lives in Ecuador. The last place he lived in was in New Brunswick. Before that, he lived in Ontario. And during the COVID stupidity, he could see the national socialist bent that Canada was falling into. And him and his wife said, enough of that. And they made plans, and they are now living there. Here's Truth Seeker stating, people have no idea of the actual underbelly of the Canadians, and I'm so glad it's coming out, because I felt insane talking about getting attacked and getting that fluoride stare. That's a good line. 80% of Canadians are zombies that would kill their own children without question if the TV told them to. Indeed. It's insane. You got people online arguing that euthanizing people is healthcare. Dear Canadian, says Die Civitas, this is why you are poorer than Alabama. Because your government is filled with vacuous ideologues who think that playing pretend games of save the climate is more important than real-life men. Women and children having a home, heating, food, work, and a future. The sheer magnitude of how badly Canada is fucked this up cannot be described with words and has led to demonstrably lower quality of life for Canadians, says Michael Spiker. These are full integer percentage points of GDP the country has foregone through completely unforced error. It's pathetic. Well, let's click on the link and see what happens. There we go. LNG exports by country. And look at this. Canada sucks. And here's liquid natural gas. Yeah. Coming out of the States, too bad. We decided not to, take advantage of all that. But, that's to be expected when you elect liberals in charge. My 60-plus years of life, I've been through a lot of governments, and every time the liberals are in, they screw everything up, and then the conservatives have to come in and try to clean it up. And then, of course, the liberal press makes them look bad, and then the whole cycle starts over again. And every time it gets worse, and this is the worst it's ever been. Dean Allison says, you are paid in large part, CTV or fully CBC, by local government. Then you're not a journalist. You're a bureaucrat, influencer, activist. How can anyone expect fairness to conservatives when the liberals are paying legacy media bills? And this comes, of course, from Sharon Carr, why most moderates are fleeing the CPC. She just makes up stuff anyway. They're going on about influencers getting paid. We're like, what? What are you talking about? Not that I'm an influencer. There are people out there that have far more people following and subscribing than I ever will. And they are the influencers. But they're just trying to make some money online like everyone else. They're not being paid by QCJO. They're not being paid by the liberals. And, of course, they're not part of that troll farm or the continuous rising troll farms that we know exist, but the liberals are funding to have people online. You can see them. Those are not real people. Nobody's that bloody stupid. Bots like that. And if you look at their posting history, you can pretty well tell which ones are manufactured accounts. Now, here's something that Mario reposted. Mario Zelaya. Candace is incredible. Justin got caught lying. So let's watch this.
Hateful rhetoric against that guy. I don't hear you guys. All I know for all.
Is that there? Okay, let's go.
All I know he was a Fed.
This was repeatedly put forward by you and other people like you, that it was some plan that the government put in there, which is ludicrous.
I let you speak. Now it's my turn to speak, Justin. I let you speak. Go ahead. Okay, so again, go to any protest in Canada, and you will see this kind of rhetoric. I don't like it. I don't think it's good when they're calling it when they're calling Danielle Smith treasonous, which, by the way, BC Premier David Eby recently implied that and actually used the word treasonous. So it's not just one way here, right? You see this stuff about Donald Trump. You see dangerous, hateful rhetoric against that guy. I don't hear you guys complaining about it or saying that it's somehow a threat to our system, right? You go to any of these Islamist protests and you will see people with Nazi flags, and they're actually talking about it in the actual context of the Nazis, like, hey, let's burn the Jews, let's kill the Jews. That's literally what they're saying. It's gross, but you see these kind of fringe lunatics, maniacs at the convoy, at any protest in the country, right? So the people that drew the swastikas on the flag, and you brought up the Michael Cooper example, perfect example of fake news. An MP shows up on the Hill to meet with his constituents, to meet with concerned Canadians. Someone in the far background has written something on a Canadian flag, and that becomes a top story in the country. So much so we're still talking about it 4 years later that CBC pushed out totally fake news that somehow Michael Cooper was a Nazi because he was at a protest.
No one said that.
And someone in the background behind him because they were saying that the Trudeau government is acting like Nazis with these government overreach policies. Okay, I don't agree with that line of reasoning, but we should at least be honest about what they're saying, right? They're not saying gas the Jews. Actually, that's what some of the Islamists are saying.
Well, Candace might not agree with that line of reasoning, but I think everything else that has happened since then has borne that out. From gun confiscation, just like the Nazis, from euthanizing useless eaters, which is happening right now, just like the Nazis did. from their National Socialist ideals where they're spending a lot of money on corporations and making deals with corporations and incorporating them into government like fascists, and while not dealing with the material demands of their people. That's pure fascism right there as well. So I think we're pretty well on our way to National Socialism in Canada.
Protesters were saying is we feel like the government is stepping on us and crushing us, and we don't like it, and that makes us think that your government is like Nazi Germany. Again, not my view, but let's at least be honest about what the people were saying and not put words into their mouth and pretend that they're actually extreme. Again, I say go to any protest in this country and you'll find crazy people. You'll find crazy people. Go anywhere in the country and you'll find people with views that you will find shocking, right? And this is again why I call you, Justin Ling, an elite. And guess what? Anyone in Canada can play this game. Oh, I come from working class, blue collar origins. We all do. Okay, we all do. It's a country of resource extraction. So we all come from those backgrounds. But I call you an elite because you sit there from your laptop and you judge and you look down on these people and you say, oh, look at these extreme views. I'm going to apply them to everybody. And then, no, we shouldn't talk to them. We shouldn't talk to them. You know, there's hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of Canadians that were represented by those truckers. I wanted them to talk to my leaders. That's the purpose of a democracy. I wanted my leaders.
Okay, let me give Justin a chance to respond.
And they were.
Oh, good little video. Good video to post there, Barrow. Excellent. Very good. Okay, table side. Holy FK, you guys. Stop what you're doing and watch this. CBC tried to find another economic standard to use for Canada instead of GDP per capita because the Alabama thing. But every metric they used was also in precipitous decline. Canada's so cooked. All right, let's listen to these clowns.
And if GDP per capita is the one we're going to use, sure. But the point of it is to have a broader conversation. You looked at a whole bunch of figures. You were tweeting about this over the weekend, not just GDP per capita, measuring, are we better off than we were 20 years ago? And the interesting thing that jumped out to me was the only one that seemed to have improved over the last number of years was, in fact, GDP per capita. Everything else is in pretty precipitous decline.
Yeah, there's this kind of ongoing debate, and I think both sides are somewhat wrong. You know, you've got one side who's very reliant on GDP per capita as their measure of well-being, and GDP per capita is correlated with well-being, but it's not well-being. There are other things to consider. And then you've got another side of the debate who's saying, well, we're actually doing much better than GDP per capita would indicate. I've kind of taken the other approach and saying, well, actually not so fast. So GDP per capita, we're doing pretty well in, but other indicators such as wealth and income inequality, deaths of despair, and so on, we tend to actually be below the average of kind of Western economies. So, you know, I looked at the UN Human Development Index, which takes into account a variety of different factors. Back in the 1990s, we were consistently in the top 3. We're now down to 16th place in the latest report. There's a World Happiness Report, also a UN initiative. Just a decade ago, we were the 6th best country in the world, according to that. Now we're 18th. And it's not to suggest that, you know, things aren't getting better in some areas, that they are, but rather that other countries are getting better faster. And there are areas like inequality where Canada's performance has deteriorated over the last decade or.
Wow. Every indicator says we suck, and we're going to suck more. So I think the primary indicator that can blow any argument out of the water, if anyone tries to say that we're going to look at factors differently, you borrowed over $1 billion to give Canadians food stamps. You got an answer for that? Yeah, I thought so. Andy Lee says, Canada doesn't have a justice system. Pedophiles walk free, while victims get a life sentence in hell. Ontario's top court agreed house arrest was an unfit sentence for a man caught with over 22,000 images and 741 videos of child sex abuse, but declined to give him prison time. Remember, this is the same judicial system that went after political prisoners, even after the Emergencies Act was found to be illegal. Twice. Now, Polyev, yes, this is from yesterday's video. Actually, it's the same pitch. And my message on is back a little bit there. And once again, once in a little choppy. And waiting for settings to come up. Looking at the bit rate, another 100. There we go. Okay, we'll find out if a 200 bit rate stream is good enough for a broadcast. Guess we'll see what happens over there on the big TV. About a 30-minute delay. Right, so Carney says, this is in America. Everyone gets health care. Polyev, 100,000 died on wait lists due to out-of-control immigration. Carney, I've only been a PM for a year. And I can see I'm back over there. Okay, so let's watch this video. Just the start of it.
Right, Honorable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm looking forward to coming up to my one-year anniversary as Prime Minister.
Hear, hear. Has the system under control? Obviously, he's just another Liberal.
Mr. Speaker, 11 years? I just got here.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister may pretend he just got here like he's a temporary foreign worker or something. But in reality, it's the same Liberal House Leader, the same Liberal Finance Minister, the same Liberal Justice Minister who was the Immigration Minister that broke the entire system that are running it into the ground today.
Mr. Speaker, I just got here.
The Honourable Member.
Yes. Thanks, Letter Kenergy. Yes, I know I was getting double audio there because if I have the desktop audio selected while I have my mic, I get a bit of that double audio issue. And sometimes when I'm going back and forth, I forget to tag it off. I appreciate that. Juno News. Conservatives highlighted a 2012 Federal Court of Appeal ruling confirming Canada isn't obligated to provide full health care to non-citizens, which of course is one of the arguments that they came back and says, oh no, we have to. That's Leanne. That's my Leanne Diab, by the way. Mr. Speaker, we have to take care of the immigrants over Canadian citizens. Now, she didn't actually say that in those words. That's basically what they're saying. They said that, no, the care will continue. Yeah, there's nothing to add to that. The care will continue. No, they're not going to do less. And no, Canadians are not going to be entitled to what all the immigrants are getting. And that's just the way it's going to be. Because that's what Liberals do, right? They don't answer your questions, and they just repeat what they are going to do. And that's what they do. Doobie-doobie-doo. Theo Fleury. Canada has a severe case of mass formation psychosis, and here's the proof. Yes, well, latest, look at these numbers, eh? Now, of course, I've never been polled myself. I'm going to be 62 this year. I've never been polled for my political vote my entire life. So I don't know who the hell they're polling. There was a lot of issues. They said a lot of people are just being polled through landlines. It's a big one. So, and then again, who's answering most of those polls? Obviously, mostly Liberals. Can Canadians be that actually Stockholm Syndrome captured in Canada? They want more misery. And of course, here we are with another yeah. I don't know much more it can actually bring down. Where's my stream output? Okay, let's go down to 150. There we go. Okay. Now, the official record states Mark Carney might have the most impressive resume in Canadian politics. Former central banker, global heavyweight, elite credentials. On paper, it's a championship roster. Politics isn't a CV contest, it's a results-based business. And right now, it feels like the title run and more like another season of hype, analysis, and the long-term fundamentals. Canada knows this script. Big expectations, strong on paper, no banner hanging in the rafters. At some point, the resume stops impressing, and the excuses start sounding familiar. At what point do credentials stop mattering and the scoreboard takes over? Right, so I've always said, know them by what they do. Now, of course, he kept saying, oh, you can judge me by the food price at the grocery store. And of course, everything they say, they don't really have to account for. So it doesn't mean anything. And here we are, almost a year later. And according to these polls, Canadians seem to think that he's doing an awesome job. Why is that? We know why that is. It's these guys. They fund same media. Okay. So we seem to be having a lot of stream issues. So give me a sec here. Okay, back. And the stream is live. Good. See if that fixes our issue. Now the House is should be sitting just about now. So let's go over to the House and open up our Now, we're never really too worried about them starting on time, because they never do. And they're still into the statements by members. So do you think Matt Walsh is right, that the Liberals have made Canada poorer by squandering our resource wealth?
Is squandering its vast natural resources, which is a grave injustice that affects millions of lives. Canada has almost unparalleled access to some of the most valuable God-given resources on the planet, and they're simply not using them. And people are suffering in large numbers as a result. Under the Don Rowe doctrine, as we call it now, which our president has clearly laid out, this is a major problem that needs to be rectified. By most estimates, Canada has around $800,000 in natural resource wealth per capita. That's more than 6 times the resource wealth in the U.S. per capita. So in other words, given their small population, there's no reason why every Canadian shouldn't be well off. Every single one of them should have immediate access to high quality health care, a home, stable income. On a per person basis, the typical Canadian should have more wealth than the typical American, especially since the demographics of Canada, historically speaking, until recently, have been relatively homogenous. Now, what's happened instead is that Canada has squandered this wealth. They've passed environmental regulations that make it difficult, if not impossible, to build new pipelines, dams, mines. Before anything can get done, they have gender equity reviews to conduct and emission standards to meet and high taxes to pay and, of course, Indigenous elders to consult. Canadians appear to believe that it's important to sabotage their own economy for ideological reasons, which is what they're doing every day. But whatever their reasoning, they're making themselves poor on purpose, and many Canadians don't appear to even realize it. That's why there was mass hysteria among Canadians the other day when the Canadian paper Globe and Mail ran a story about just how poor Canadians are. This was the title of the article, quote, "Out of nowhere, Canada became poorer than Alabama. How is that possible?" Now, it's a great headline for a couple of reasons. First of all, Canada didn't become poor out of nowhere. There's a very clear line we can trace here. For 10 years, as you can see here on the chart, Canada's GDP per capita, which is a useful way to measure quality of life, has been going down while ours has been going up. And that means Americans have the benefit of a much stronger economy, which means more jobs and higher wages. began surging when Trump in his first term lowered the tax rate for businesses. On the other hand, Canada's entire economy stalled the moment that Liberals took over the government, raised taxes, increased regulations, began flooding the country with foreigners, mostly from South Asia. This has been a very slow and very noticeable decline that's been happening. To be more accurate, as you can see there, the percent of foreign-born Canadians has been increasing for decades, and it's accelerated even more in the past decade. So there's nothing about Canada's economic situation that should catch anyone by surprise or come out of nowhere. Also, of course, the headline is amusing because they're acting like Alabama is like a third world hellscape. They have some kind of South Park cartoon understanding of the world. In reality, Alabama is a hub for the aerospace industry as well as biotech, defense, cars, and so on. But every time this topic comes up, Canadian politicians act like Alabama is like on another planet or something. Why?
Okay, so it's still statements by members in the lower house. And the show will be done though soon. And of course, I'm looking at the stream on the other channel, and I'm seeing that it's a little fuzzy. So I'm bringing up the bit rate again with the other correction that we did. That should increase the quality of the picture a little bit. Okay. All right. House should be sitting about now. No, it's still statements by members. Look at this. They just keep going on and on like bunny rabbits. Well, as a reminder yesterday, the Liberals don't like scrutiny. They tell you you're a bad person. This is about fairness. Taxpayers shouldn't be funding platinum-plated healthcare or failed asylum claimants while nobody can find a family doctor or wait 16 hours at an ER. And of course, one of the big things that the Liberals were saying yesterday, because a lot of the time in Parliament yesterday was spent on dealing with this massive immigration failure that the Liberals have wrought upon us. But one of the first things that came out, and of course this came from greasy, slimy Steve MacKinnon himself, accusing the Conservatives of punching down on immigrants. Punching down. No, there's no punching down. Well, what was going on actually was the opposition nipple twisting the Liberals over their horrible immigration practices. So I'm looking over there, and the picture is not too bad, except for my camera. The stream from the lower house seems clear enough. I don't really care if you can't see me just as well. So as long as the stream isn't choppy. So far, so good. Now, this should be the end of it. Shall we finally have the... Yes, we are. Okay, let's go.
Questions orales. The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
This week, the Prime Minister said, we have the immigration system under control. And his immigration minister said, my job is easy. At the end of this year, there will be nearly 3 million people in Canada on expired or expiring visas. And last year, the Liberals only managed to remove 22,000 of them. And the Liberals are still issuing hundreds of thousands of new temporary work permits this year. If her job is so easy, what's the minister's plan to get nearly 3 million people to leave?
The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
Thank you very much. The job that I have is never easy. It is one of the toughest jobs in government, and the reason is many Canadians and many people are looking at our government to control immigration and to keep it sustainable. With regards to the temporary, we have targets, we have ranges for temporary residents. Those that are on temporary status have the opportunity to extend. They also have the opportunity to use some of our permanent pathways. Otherwise, they are expected to leave.
Good job. The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
The immigration minister has been in her job for a year now, and she was appointed to get... Since she's appointed, we've been getting disgusting stories every other week about non-citizens convicted of serious crime getting leniency in order to avoid deportation. She could have been lobbying her cabinet colleagues to make sure that laws are changed and that victims get the justice that they deserve, but she's done nothing. If the Prime Minister wants to move at a scale and speed not seen in generations, why doesn't he just fire his failed minister now?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. On my record and work on immigration, the record speaks for itself. We're taking back control on the immigration system. We're returning immigration to sustainable levels. Our asylum levels are down by a third. The number of international students is down by a third. The no temporary foreign workers are down by a half. We have exceeded our Francophone immigration targets. We are bringing global talents. From July to October 2025, the population of Canada decreased slightly. We are on track and we've met all our targets.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Knowles Hill.
Mr. Speaker, her record sure does speak for itself. In fact, 10 Liberal members of Parliament had comments on her record today. They were quoted in a CBC article saying what millions of Canadians already know, that the Prime Minister's immigration minister isn't getting her jobs done. She won't take basic meetings, processing times haven't been fixed, and the asylum backlog has ballooned to 300,000 people under her watch. I've said it before, I'll say it again. She is a bad minister. If the Liberal caucus doesn't even think she should have her job, why is the Prime Minister still defending her?
Honourable Minister.
We are building an immigration system that keeps Canada strong. That is our mission. That is our mandate. That is what Canadians elected us to do.
Yes.
That is what we will continue to do. In June, we introduced legislation C2 to protect the asylum system against sudden increases in claims. Au Canada a diminué d'un tiers. De juillet à octobre 2025, la population de Canada a légèrement diminué après plusieurs années. On a augmenté le pourcentage des économiques migrantes à 5%.
Liberals have actually broken the system. The facts are that 86%, in order to talent, we are building a world-class. The percentage slave asylum claim.
It was fair and orderly, but not with this minister. Why does she?
Sorry about that. I didn't realize I was on floor video. Now we're back to the English answer.
Mr. Speaker, on immigration, this government has reduced asylum claims by a third. The number of international students in Canada has gone down by a third. From July to October 2025, the population of Canada slightly decreased after several years. We have increased the percentage of the economy stream to 64% in order to attract world-class talent. We are building a world-class immigration system. The Honourable Member for Charles-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister stated that the immigration system is under control, but the Liberals have actually broken the system. The facts are that 86% of fake asylum seekers are still in Canada. Thousands are still wanted by the CBSA, and appropriate security checks are not taking place. And these individuals are placing pressure on our schools and healthcare system in Quebec. Will the Prime Minister finally fire this minister, the Honourable Government House Leader? Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we are proud to serve side by side with this immigration minister. We are proud of our immigration system. We are very proud to have the first Lebanese woman in this position with a remarkable roadmap as a Nova Scotia MP and here in the House. The results speak for themselves. Asylum claims have gone down by a third. Same thing for international students. And from July to October, the population of Canada went down. This minister is doing her job. The Honourable Member for Charles-Beauhaut-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, this is not a personal matter. This is a professional matter. It is clear that this minister does not understand her files. 10 of her colleagues said on Radio-Canada that the minister is not familiar with her files and is incompetent. We need a minister who understands what's happening in Canada and can manage the immigration system. Will the Prime Minister finally fire his minister, the Honourable Government House Leader? Mr. Speaker, you know who can't answer questions about immigration? People on the Conservative side who have no immigration policy. And they took a week to think about it and decided to come back to this House and punch down and try to bully the most vulnerable people, refugee seekers. For example, they're trying to kick out wounded children from the Ukraine war. They don't want kids like that to get health care. It is the Conservatives who don't have an immigration policy. On this side of the House, we are proud of our minister and our record. The Honourable Member for Charles-Beauhaut-Saint-Charles.
Saint-Jean, je m'excuse.
I'm sorry, the Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the CUSMA software fiasco with its $5 billion cost overrun is the last straw for Quebec, and the National Assembly of Quebec has just adopted a unanimous motion to state that federal IT projects and their cost overruns represent complete wastage on Quebec taxes. All Quebec elected officials have asked the federal government to create an arm's-length inquiry on federal IT contracts. When will we finally see this inquiry? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, modernizing the government is something we are currently working on, and it is already showing results. When it comes to old age security benefits, currently we are servicing 7 million Canadians with a new modernized system that has replaced a system that was really outdated. The project is in the budget and is part of a much broader modernization project for all Government of Canada benefits. The Honourable Member. Mr. Speaker, the National Assembly unanimously pointed out that the Phoenix software went from an initial budget of $309 million to $5.5 billion, while ArriveCan went from $80,000 to $60 million. And now, CUSMA has gone from $1.75 billion to $6.6 billion. And yet the Liberals continue to deny that the CUSMA budget has ended up going over projections, even though the Auditor General already had pointed that out in 2023. Once again, when will there be a public inquiry? The Honourable Minister of Employment.
You say things, it doesn't make it true. In fact, the CUSMA software program is actually under...
Couldn't hear, sorry. Couldn't hear. Yes. We'll let the Honourable Minister... We'll let the Honourable Minister answer the question. The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families may continue.
Mr. Speaker, over and over and over, we hear this number that's patently wrong. And I have no other way to say it, Mr. Speaker. This is the largest transformation of the way we deliver benefits in the history of this country. We are moving 3 important benefit programs from paper-based, old-school technology to full modernization, where people will be able to apply and are right now able to apply online. Mr. Speaker, this...
The honourable member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Well, I wouldn't attack the credibility of the Auditor General if I were the minister, Mr. Speaker. These Liberals seem to think this is just a joke. They're just ignoring the problem, and they keep on spending taxpayer money. The National Assembly has reminded us that over 3 failed IT projects, Ottawa has wasted more than $10 billion. That's 5 times more than it would take the government of Quebec to repair 227 hospital buildings. But there's no accountability in Ottawa. The Liberals keep saying that there haven't been any cost overruns. When will we have a public inquiry? The Honourable Minister.
As I've said, 7.7 million seniors have been transitioned to this new software. There are still some seniors who have applied for their benefits that are waiting. That number is dropping, Mr. Speaker, every week, every month, as we anticipate it will continue to do. And Mr. Speaker, our officials are working very hard night and day to make sure that all cases are resolved. If the member opposite has a person in his riding who needs urgent attention, I suggest he share that name with me or have them call Service Canada. We haven't received any names yet from that member of Parliament.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
The Liberal immigration minister is out of her depth, and the numbers prove it. 86% of rejected asylum seekers remain in Canada. 25,000 people were admitted without a proper security screening, and nearly 3 million temporary visa holders are nearing expiry with no clear plan in place. And yesterday, the Prime Minister claimed that the system is, quote, under control. But there are no real controls left. The Liberals dismantled them, and the minister has shown no ability to restore order. So with results like these, why is she still in her job?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I will park some of the factual inaccuracies that were included in the member's question, but let me just take a moment to say that I have been proud to work alongside my colleague for Nova Scotia, not just in her current capacity as Minister of Immigration for Canada, but previously when she served as the Immigration Minister in my home province of Nova Scotia. She was uniquely responsible for bringing the healthcare workers that provide care to my neighbours. She was uniquely responsible in helping resettle refugees from Syria when the federal Conservatives wouldn't lift a finger. She is working on a program that may be a difficult problem to solve, but she is restoring integrity to the immigration system, and the personal attacks are cruel, inappropriate, and beneath this House.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
It is that minister who left the immigration minister with the mess that she has to clean up. And he knows that even Liberal MPs who have been passed over for a decade can see that she's out of her depth because of the mess that he left. These are direct quotes from them. She has no idea how to respond. She doesn't make sense. She puts her foot in her mouth. At what point will the Prime Minister acknowledge that this file requires real leadership and a serious course correction without the two of them?
The Honourable Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture.
Mr. Speaker, we see what the Conservatives are doing here, pitting Canadians against asylum seekers. Some of them helped us during COVID, deliberately confusing fraudulent claimants against failed asylum claimants. This isn't a dog whistle, it's a foghorn. And I know it's Lent, so I do implore them to show a little grace. So instead of shedding MPs for Lent, Mr. Speaker, which we appreciate, maybe they need to shed this line of questioning.
The honourable member for Thornhill.
They've just put up a third failed immigration minister to answer for the question. This is actually a really serious issue, and they can talk down members of this House. They can call them bad people all they want, but Canada's immigration consensus is crumbling. Stakeholders aren't getting their calls returned. Controls are gone, putting pressure on housing, on healthcare, and on jobs, and the minister is MIA throughout all of it. The House deserves a straight answer. When is she getting fired?
Yay! The Honourable Minister.
So, Mr. Speaker, let's assume for a second that the Conservatives actually want to help the situation. Perhaps the member opposite can turn to her right, talk to the leader of the opposition who's changed so many ridings, he's Parliament's own temporary foreign worker, and ask him to stop going around the country pandering to communities, promising them not to be deported, and promising visas for everyone. That might help, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Regina Capel.
Mr. Speaker, they're putting up all the failed previous immigration ministers to speak for her. Mr. Speaker, the Liberal Prime Minister has created a sentencing discount system.
From the top.
Liberal government has created a sentencing discount system for foreign criminals. The Prime Minister claims that they've got the system under control. Well, let's look at the case of Rajbir Singh. This criminal sexually assaulted a young woman and received a conditional discharge so he would not have a criminal conviction registered against him so he could stay in the country. Under this Liberal PM sentencing discount policy, not only are dangerous criminals allowed to stay in the country, they get released early. When will this Prime Minister fire his immigration minister, or does he think that she's got it all under control?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, the assertion of the member in the opposition party is absolutely false, Mr. Speaker. When somebody is before the courts, somebody's facing criminal charges and conviction, they're deemed to be inadmissible in Canada, Mr. Speaker. The Canada Border Service agencies take these very seriously, and they have admissible individuals removed. Last year, we removed over 22,000 individuals from Canada. But let me be very clear. The issue of lawful access is a tool that law enforcement have been asking for. The party opposite has absolutely failed in supporting those policies so that we can have a safer country, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Regina Capel.
If they had confidence in the immigration minister, then she would be answering these questions herself, Mr. Speaker. Let's take a look at another case. Joyson Lewis assaulted his girlfriend, grabbed her, tearing her shirt in the process, and threw her to the ground when he hit her again. The judge in the case sentenced this foreign criminal to 9 months of probation, specifically so that the conviction would not be entered into the record so he could stay in Canada. Why is this Liberal government doubling down on a policy that gives sentencing discounts to foreign criminals, and when will this Prime Minister fire this minister?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, Canada is a rule of law country, one that respects the rule of law. Nobody is above the law, Mr. Speaker. And the discounts that this individual is talking about is absolutely false. What I will say is that the Canada Border Service agencies removes those who are inadmissible to Canada, those with criminal penalties. But let me also be very clear, Mr. Speaker. The party opposite absolutely refuses to move on lawful access, a tool that law enforcement has been asking for from coast to coast to coast. This is the record that party has in terms of defending the rights of Canadians and keeping Canada safer, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Long Range Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, by the end of this year, 3 million temporary residents will have had their visas expire, and the government has no enforcement plan to ensure that they leave. Last year alone, 1.5 million permits expired, and the Liberals just simply assumed that they would magically comply. The system is out of control. Housing is strained, youth unemployment is rising, our healthcare system is broken. Canadians are clearly paying the price. So when will the Prime Minister take responsibility for this failure and fire his immigration?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, we have been getting this immigration system under control. We've just seen that Bill C-12 is about to pass from the Senate. This will not allow people to abuse our asylum system. And Mr. Speaker, if they cared so much about crime, they would have passed C-14 a long time ago. We could have had that bill passed back in Christmas time, Mr. Speaker. It's 80 different changes of the Criminal Code of Canada. It's We're strengthening our criminal code more than we have seen in generations, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Long Range Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, competence is not talking points, it's measured by results. 33,000 non-citizens listed as wanted by the CBSA is not competent. When 86% of rejected asylum claimants remain in Canada, that's not compassion, that's a system that is not being enforced. The minister has lost control of the file, the confidence of stakeholders, and now members of their own caucus are questioning her ability, and Canadians are paying the price. So once again, will the Prime Minister take responsibility for this failure and fire his immigration minister?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, if the Conservatives really cared about these issues, they would support us in our responsible legislation that we are putting forward. We're bringing down asylum numbers, Mr. Speaker, in this country, and we're reducing fraud in our system with the leadership of the immigration minister, Mr. Speaker. If the Conservatives cared, they would stop their divisive politics and their hate tactics, and they would join us in making sure that legislation passes swiftly through this House, and they would stop the obstruction.
Right on. L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Pierre Boucher les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals have cut $5 billion for public transportation, and Quebec never even got a dime from that fund, but Ontario and Western Canada have received a lot of money. And what's weird is that sum, $5 billion, is exactly the same as the cost overruns for the CURM software, which doesn't even work. So that's $5 billion more for consultants and $5 billion less for public transportation. Why don't the Liberals invest Quebecers' money within Quebec instead of making consultants rich?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Merci pour la question. The good news, Mr. Speaker, is that we have a Building Communities Fund, strong fund, which includes public transit. This is a $51 billion infrastructure fund that this House has the opportunity to support in the Budget Implementation Act. $51 billion, and a significant percentage of that applies to public transit. We are in talks with the Government of Quebec to pursue the opportunity for public transit investment. We hope to conclude those negotiations and be able to ongoing invest in public transit across Quebec as we have across the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Repentigny.
The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, this $5 billion cut to the public transportation fund is being criticized by everyone. The Transit Alliance, a coalition including Équiterre, Trajectoire Québec, Vivre en Ville, and many other organizations. They're all saying the federal government is hurting users, mobility, and its own climate targets. And what's even worse is that Quebec did not get a single dime of this money, whereas Ontario and Vancouver hit the jackpot. Will the Liberals cancel this cut and ensure that Quebec gets its fair share?
Monsieur le Président, again, encore, merci pour la question.
Once again, thank you for the question.
To pursue public transit investment with the Government of Quebec. We are at the table, we are negotiating, we welcome the opportunity to invest. There is significant dollars available in the Build Communities Strong Fund. When the BIA is passed, we will be able to move that funding through on top of the $25 billion that's available in the Canada Public Transit Fund. So you add all that up, there's a significant increase to the public transit funding that is available, and there's more flexibility for provinces, territories, and cities to pursue. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
The Prime Minister falsely claims he has our immigration system under control. But when a non-Canadian on a student visa can spy on his female housemates for 6 months and not get deported, Canadians know the system is out of control. He recorded them in various states of undress, Mr. Speaker. He recorded them using the bathroom. But instead of protecting these women, liberal sentencing discounts.
So these last little glitches here. That's my stream, not my stream. Sorry, that's the internet. If I'm not getting a proper stream coming in from their server, it buggers everything up. Let's get back to this.
Consequences to benefit the offender. When did the Liberals abandon vulnerable women? And when will the Prime Minister finally take accountability and fire his immigration minister?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Mr. Speaker, it's completely the opposite. The Conservatives would like Canadians to believe that there is some policy in place. There is no policy in place. The provinces should respond for those types of actions that are happening in provincial criminal courts, not federal policy, Mr. Speaker. If anything, we are strengthening the Criminal Code of Canada to make sure that criminals face the penalties that they should for these outrageous crimes.
The Honourable Member for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
That's not an answer, Mr. Speaker, and this isn't isolated. When a non-citizen can sexually assault someone's 18-year-old daughter twice and not get deported, the system is out of control. This offender was found guilty of sexual assault. The judge knew he would be deported, but then they gave him a discharge and probation so another criminal stays in Canada. The Liberals accuse us of all kinds of things, Mr. Speaker, but their judges are pleading down at the expense of our daughters. So I'll ask again, Mr. Speaker, when will the Prime Minister fire his immigration minister and get immigration back under control?
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Mr. Speaker, these are not our judges. These are Canadian judges appointed by provinces. Our criminal court hearings happen at the provincial level, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Conservatives would like Canadians to believe that there is some type of federal policy that is making judges make these decisions. There is absolutely no such policy, Mr. Speaker. If anything, we are tightening our Criminal Code of Canada. In C-16 and in C-14, we're making sure that we support our victims of sexual assault and that we make conditional sentences no longer.
L'honorable député de
The Honourable Member for Montmorency Charlevoix. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said the immigration system is under control. I'm very sorry, but that is not at all the case. In Quebec, for example, there are 200,000 asylum seekers within Quebec, which is putting pressure on our healthcare and education and childcare systems. And today we learned in Radio-Canada that the Liberal immigration minister doesn't understand her files and is not at all available on the ground. Will the Prime Minister finally stand up and fire his immigration minister? The Honourable Government House Leader. Mr. Speaker, as my colleague knows very well, because this question has been asked already a number of times today and has been answered by the Minister of Immigration and other colleagues, asylum claims have actually gone down by a third under this minister. Same thing for international students. And between July and October 2025, Canada's population even shrank slightly after having grown for several years previously. That is this immigration minister's record. Meanwhile, what is the policy of the Conservative Party?
I have on my list here the Honourable Member for Montmorency Charlevoix, but I see the member for Richemont-Athabasca is rising. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For weeks now, I've been rising in this place to ask questions about the CURAM IT software project. The cost ballooned from $1.6 billion to $6.6 billion. That's a $5 billion cost overrun. There are 78,000 seniors waiting to receive their benefits. We've asked dozens of questions. The Liberals haven't answered our questions. Yesterday, I asked if there was anyone taking leadership on the government benches who would take ownership of this file. so that I could go and see that person so that they could handle these files. This is unacceptable. Canadians are paying out of pockets for this. This is wasted money. What will the Liberal government be doing about this? The Honourable Minister of Employment and Families.
I find it ironic that the member opposite is saying that he's asked who to speak to, and I've said about 15 times, come and speak to me directly if you have cases that you need accelerated. I've also been very clear in this House, Mr. Speaker, that this is a massive transformation of software. We have a portfolio of money allowed to us to do that transformation, and in fact, we're under budget, Mr. Speaker. So the member opposite, if he needs to be briefed, I ask him to come to me immediately after question period, and I will talk to him.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lotbinière. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Liberal Prime Minister said that he had the immigration system under control. Yet the Liberals have abandoned security checks, systematic review processes. The Liberals have allowed approximately 25,000 people into the country without any of them having a single conversation with any government employee. Meanwhile, Mr. Speaker, where is the Minister of Immigration? She's not answering any questions. The situation is so serious that even Liberal MPs are calling for her resignation. Can the Prime Minister take responsibility and finally dismiss his Liberal Minister of Immigration? The Honourable Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship.
This one, let me be clear about the facts. Officers rigorously review each and every claim before they reach the IRB, and nobody can claim asylum in Canada without questioning. To keep Canadians safe, CBSA does the front-end security screening on all adult refugee claimants. There is no rubber stamping of any files and any claims. Each one is assessed individually on the merits by highly trained decision makers. Our government worked hard to bring the asylum claims down by more than a third last year. We will keep working hard to do that. We've got Bill C-12 in front of us. And thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Sault Ste. Marie Algoma.
Speaker, we know that Canadian workers are the backbone of a strong economy. The government's new workforces alliances are bringing together workers, industry, and training partners to build the skilled and resilient workforce that Canada needs for the future. Now more than before, Canadian workers need their government to have their backs. Can the Minister for Jobs and Families tell this House how our government is supporting workers and strengthening the Canadian economy now and in the future?
The Honourable Minister for Jobs and Family.
Mr. Speaker, the Member of Parliament for Sault Ste. Marie Algoma is a force to be reckoned with. In fact, it was such an honour to stand with him at the Algoma Steel Mill to support the defence of Canadian-made steel. And I want to thank him for his ongoing advocacy. Mr. Speaker, it was a very proud moment for me to announce 5 additional workforce alliances. What these are, Mr. Speaker, are a way, and something that industry has been calling for a very long time, a way to streamline skills training with the needs of industry. I'm so thrilled that we are working strongly with workers and employers across this country to build Canada strong.
The Honourable Member for Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister falsely stated that he had the immigration system under control. Does he realize his own immigration department is rubber stamping asylum claims from terror-sponsoring countries like Afghanistan, Yemen, and Iran? We just heard that the Minister doesn't even realize that she's auto-approving claims from Pakistan, where one of its nationals was trying to claim asylum when he was arrested in Quebec for allegedly plotting a terrorist attack against Jews in New York City. This incompetence hurts legitimate refugees and all Canadians. Now even their own caucus is calling for the Prime Minister's hand-picked immigration to be fired. When will the Prime Minister wake up and fire this immigration minister?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, every file for asylum comes through a very rigorous security check, Mr. Speaker, both through CBSA as well as through CSIS. Our law enforcement work every single day to keep Canadians safe, and the rigorous process to ensure that those who are inadmissible are deemed to be inadmissible and are removed.
That's a pure lie. There's just the math of it doesn't make any sense at all. There's no bloody way that the 34% increase in population that occurred over the past 15 years was properly vetted, especially over the last 2 years. We just don't have that volume of people in government to look over files. They did the math. They would have taken them. Oh, what's going on? I see my phone. There we go. Sorry about that. That's a good thing I didn't have adjourn. Let's go back to this. The math doesn't add up. They would have had to spend like 10 seconds per file working 24 hours a day. There's no way those files are edited.
Is something that our law enforcement agencies do each and every day, Mr. Speaker. The assertions made by the opposition is absolutely false.
Honourable member for Saskatoon West.
Mr. Speaker, it's embarrassing. The ministers don't even know how their own system works. Yesterday, the Prime Minister falsely claimed that he had the immigration system under control. He blindly expressed full confidence in his immigration minister. These are the facts. 300,000 asylum claims, a 4-year backlog, nearly 3 million temporary residents with expiring permits and no plan to remove them. Auto-approving asylum claims from terror-sponsoring countries without any human intervention. Ask any Canadian. Immigration is far from under control. Now even Liberal MPs are questioning her place at the cabinet table. Will the Prime Minister finally wake up, listen to his own MPs, and fire his incompetent immigration minister?
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, what I can say is that we have a robust refugee protection system that ensures the safety and security of Canadians. First and foremost, Mr. Speaker, we have a system through the Immigration Refugee Board where every single file is assessed for its merit and it's in compliance with the Refugee Convention of 1951. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, before somebody is granted permanent residency, there is a vigorous security check that enables Canada to ensure the safety and security of Canadians from our law enforcement agencies, including the Canada CSIS as well as the Canada Border Service Agency. The assertions made by...
The Honourable Member for Riding Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, I asked the Immigration Minister at Health Committee how many more patients our healthcare system could handle. She laughed, then said it wasn't a fair question for immigration. Not a fair question, Mr. Speaker. 6 million Canadians don't have a doctor. People are dying waiting for care. Our system is at capacity, and she doesn't even know it. If the minister sitting immigration levels doesn't think healthcare capacity is her business, then she has no business being minister. So will the Prime Minister fire her today?
The Honourable Health Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Canada has the values to which the world aspires. We have always been and always will be committed to fundamental rights and human dignity. And we believe in our universal healthcare system. Let's not play politics at the expense of asylum seekers. As I just said, we must build a better healthcare system, and we are doing it working with provinces and territories. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Riding Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal Immigration Minister falsely told the Health Committee that rejected asylum claimants lose the premium health benefits her government provides. But she was wrong. In fact, her own department had to correct her. Rejected claimants remain fully eligible for premium health benefits like physiotherapy and home care under the interim federal health program. A minister who doesn't know her own program has no business running it. Will the Prime Minister take accountability and fire his immigration minister?
The Honourable Health Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to remind my colleague that healthcare is provincial jurisdiction, not federal jurisdiction. The Health Minister and the Immigration Minister have the responsibility to work with provinces and territories in offering services, and as you know, the Immigration Minister has nothing to do with who offers or provides services on the ground. Thank you.
Canada's immigration system is broken, and the Liberal Immigration Minister is treating this critical file like a game of hide and seek. She's not very good at hiding, but the Liberals are very good at deflecting. Even her own Liberal colleagues have called out her abject incompetence. As the minister tries to hide, Canadians are left witnessing youth unemployment crisis and 3 million temporary resident visas expiring in 2026. Will this minister stop playing games and start taking responsibility for the mess that she and the Liberals created?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, it's clear without much substance in the question that's actually being put on the floor that the Conservatives had decided, for political reasons, to try to use immigration as a wedge issue in Canadian politics. They could be using their questions to focus on the Canada-US relationship. They could be using it to focus on how we can improve healthcare, how we can grow the economy. But no, for more than 10 years that I've been elected as a member of Parliament, time and time again, when things get tough, the Conservatives pivot to attacking newcomers. We are dealing with, in some instances, some of the most vulnerable people in the world. I wish we could focus on...
Whoa. There's a lot of noise coming from that side. I know there's some coming from the end over there, and I've got my eye on a certain member over there, but there's a lot of noise coming from that side. So, okay. The Honourable Minister may continue, but please let's keep it down.
I'll conclude very quickly, Mr. Speaker. This is a time for thoughtful debate on policy solutions that will advance the country's interests, not a time for immature name-calling.
The Honourable Member for Leduc-Wetaskiwin.
Less than a year ago, the Liberal election platform promised that the federal deficit would be limited to an already eye-popping $62 billion. That deficit exploded to $78 billion in the fall, with billions more added since. Our federal debt is now nearly 2.5 times what it was just a decade ago. Meanwhile, the Toronto Star warns this morning that Canadian household debt has risen to a record $2.6 trillion. How have we gone in just a decade from a country with a balanced budget and the richest middle class in the world to a country where Canadians are taking on record personal debt to pay off bills passed down to them by their own federal government?
Unbelievable.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Debt and deficit that are fiscally sustainable, because the IMF has testified to that fact. The Bank of Canada has testified to that fact. We continue to put in measures, of course, to build up the economy. And opportunities agenda is exactly what this country needs right now. We have seen this government move ahead to ensure that the resources of this country get to market, to build up infrastructure, to make sure that this country can compete on a global level in a changing international landscape. If Conservatives want to be serious, they can join us in those initiatives by pursuing policies that are thoughtful, or they can keep playing games.
The Honourable Member for Leduc-Wetaskiwin.
Well, under the Liberals' new leadership, Canada's multi-front economic crisis has gotten objectively worse. The Liberal Prime Minister himself promised the $62 billion deficit. Their own budget shattered that promise, adding $16 billion in new debt, and they've added billions more in recent weeks. Young Canadians are taking on record personal debt to pay the bill. According to RBC, 64% of millennials are anxious about their financial future as monthly costs squeeze budgets. Which Liberal minister will stand now to explain to those young Canadians why they should take on more personal liability and stress to cover ever-increasing Liberal debt?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
You know, it's interesting. The Conservatives never tell us what they would cut. If they want to pursue this line of questioning, it's logical that they would go to another issue. Would they cut the Canada Child Benefit? They would.
Well, we'll tell you what they'd cut. They would cut all that useless spending. They would cut consultants. They would cut sending money to Brookfield. And then, of course, they wouldn't have to cut these things that you say they're going to cut.
They would cut pharmacare, they certainly would do that. Would they cut the school food program that we want to make permanent? They would do that. Would they not support them? These measures, they never have, they never will. What about a long-term focus, an opportunities agenda, jobs, a focus on families, youth? All those things are at stake, and we're pursuing exactly that. They should join us.
The Honourable Member for Newmarket Aurora.
Mr. Speaker, millennials were told that if we worked hard, played by the rules, and planned for the future, we could build a stable life here in Canada. But a recent RBC poll shows that 57% have nothing left after paying their monthly bills, and 4 in 10 believe that they may never be debt-free. After years of soaring housing costs, persistent inflation, and higher taxes, my generation is carrying record personal debt while also being handed this Liberal government's debt to pay for. When will they stop loading debt onto our generation so young Canadians can build a life and not just struggle?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Sport.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the Conservatives are demonstrating that they have no credibility on affordability because they're ignoring all of the recommendations that the experts are making in order to pursue a more equitable future in Canada, Mr. Speaker. One of the recommendations they chose to ignore was the groceries and essentials benefit, Mr. Speaker. We are using a proven mechanism to provide relief to families in those income brackets that need it most with the rising cost of living, Mr. Speaker. The Conservatives can quote the experts if they want, but I recommend they follow their recommendations as well.
The honourable member for Newmarket Aurora.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are tired of political talking points. The Liberals must have the humility to face the reality. Young Canadians are not falling behind by accident. They are being pushed behind by Liberal policies. They're not asking for programs. Talk to a Millennial. They're asking them to get out of the way today. TransUnion Canada reports that household debt reached $2.6 trillion by the end of 2025. Families are living paycheck to paycheck just to keep a roof over their heads. When will this Liberal government realize you cannot spend your way to affordability and finally focus on bringing down...
The Honourable Secretary of State.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. You know, it's a little bit ironic to be criticized about political talking points when the members opposite read from the same page over and over and over again. They ask the same 15 questions over and over and over again. They don't write their own questions. There's no creativity from that side, Mr. Speaker. I think the level in this debate deserves a little bit more. On housing, Mr. Speaker, we've invested $13 billion in non-market housing through Build Canada Homes, Mr. Speaker, after a successful pilot, a $1.5 billion pilot on co-op housing, Mr. Speaker. These strategies are working. Rents are coming down. Home ownership is within sight for young people, and that's because of the policies of this government. The Conservatives have a choice. They can get on board or not.
The honourable member for South Shore St. Margaret's.
Speaker, in South Shore St. Margaret's, Hallbold Industries is one of the companies in my riding that is proving that advanced manufacturing for defense isn't just an urban story, it's very much a rural one. Rural communities have the talent and the capacity to help Canada meet its defense needs. Can the Secretary Defense for Procurement explain how the new defense industrial strategy will expand opportunities for rural manufacturers like Hallbolt's and create good-paying jobs for all Canadians. Thank you.
Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State for Defense Procurement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank the member for South Shore St. Margaret's for advocacy for Nova Scotia's manufacturing, like Hallbolt Industries. Companies like this prove that advanced defense manufacturing is thriving in rural Canada. Our defense industrial strategy makes procurement a driver of growth. In Atlantic Canada, the sector supports 10,000 good-paying jobs. Through the Defence Investment Agency, at least 70% of our defense spending will focus on generating jobs and investments here at home. That makes work in communities like Chester and faster delivery for equipment to the Canadian Armed Forces. Thank you.
The honourable member for Richmond Hill South.
The hope of ever owning a home is slipping away for young Canadians. Nearly half of young Canadians are forced to move out of their communities they grew up in because they can no longer afford the Liberal housing hell. From 2019 to 24, for every 100 new adults added to our population, there were only 12 housing starts intended for ownership. This is less than half the pace of previous decades. Now a new CIBC report confirms what young Canadians already know. Homes are still too expensive to buy and not profitable to build. After years of Liberal rhetoric and red tape, when will this government finally scrap the GST on all new homes and let young Canadians build a life?
The Honourable Minister for Housing and Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, well, the good news is there is a tax break for first-time homebuyers coming. Thank members of this House for standing up for our young people. And this is really what we're seeing now, is we're seeing prices start to come down, rents come down, home prices coming down. We see that in the new CMHC Housing Affordability Index report that came out this morning. The trend is in the right direction, but we have to double down. We have to focus on delivering Build Canada homes, $13 billion for affordable housing. We have to make sure that this entire House is committed to bringing down the price of housing for young Canadians.
Excellent. The honourable member for Richmond Hill South.
Instead of laying foundations for homes, this Liberal government is laying foundations for another bureaucracy. This Liberal Prime Minister promised to build at a pace not seen since the Second World War. Yet a recent report from the government's own housing agency says that home building is expected to drop in each of the next 3 years, with housing starts in 2028 falling as much as 18% compared to last year. That's 55% below what is necessary to meet the Prime Minister's own targets. Instead of building homes, they're building roadblocks for the fourth Liberal housing bureaucracy. When will the Liberals finally admit that they themselves are the problem?
Honourable Minister.
Steps are critical, and the next step that this member can take is supporting the Build Canada Homes Act and making sure that this government has every tool available to invest in affordable housing.
What a good idea.
We have $13 billion labeled for non-market housing that will leverage tens of thousands of units of affordable housing, from rental to affordable home ownership.
That's a good idea.
We need everybody on board with this, Mr. Speaker. This is not a time to take pot shots. It's not a time to fall back on a failed record that the Conservatives have on housing. Thank you.
The honourable member for York-Durham.
A new report from CIBC confirms what young Canadians already know. The dream of home ownership is slipping away. In fact, the bank says prices are too high to buy, and that the average down payment in Ontario is now nearly $300,000. That's an impossible number. But behind that number, Mr. Speaker, a young family who can't buy a home, start a family, or build a life. The bank says that unless we cut the cost of homes, things will only get worse. So here's our suggestion. Cut the cost of GST on all new homes. Will the Housing Minister agree to that?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, you'll forgive us if Canadians recognize that party has no credibility when it comes to housing. Their leader called middle-class housing shacks.
That's right.
He called co-op housing Soviet style, and that member mocked modular housing. That leader even called on his MPs to boycott the Housing Accelerator Fund that would have actually helped their ridings. Wow. Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we're serious about getting houses built. That party is just full of obstruction and rhetoric. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Mont-Saint-Bruno-L'Acadie.
The honourable member for Mont-Saint-Bruno-L'Acadie. Mr. Speaker, on Monday at the Human Resources Committee, our government once again tried to table a motion to study the National School Food Program after hearing credible witnesses explain how it helps children and families. However, Conservative MPs spent the session obstructing and denying the fact that food security is linked to affordability. They denied the impact of climate change on food systems and also denied the idea that families should not have to worry about whether their children ate lunch, whether they're eating enough vegetables, or whether they've had enough to eat. Can the Secretary of State for Children and Youth tell this House how the National School Food Program helps children eat well and helps families worry less?
Waited that long. Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Et d'abord,
Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague, the member for Mont-Saint-Bruno-L'Acadie, for his question. If the Conservative Party wants to talk about food insecurity, they should support the school food program. A new study by the Breakfast Club of Canada shows that when children eat well at school, their academic performance improves. Child health improves, and this program also helps families reduce their food spending. While they engage in pointless obstruction, we will continue to listen to educators and experts. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Brantford South, Six Nations.
This week, Peel Police charged 4 men with sex trafficking girls as young as 11 years of age. Yet within 24 hours, these disgusting criminals were released on Liberal bail. Let that sink in. Grown men charged with exploiting young girls are now walking free. Wow. This is an absolute disgrace. This is what a broken justice system looks like. Yep. Enough is enough. When will this government stop coddling the worst criminals in our society and finally stand on the side of innocent children?
Hear, hear. Honourable Secretary of State for Combating Crime.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just today, I was with Peel Regional Police at a human trafficking symposium, and we talked about these issues with survivors. It's really important that criminals of this type, this heinous crime, get the sentences that they deserve, and that is why, Mr. Speaker, we brought in place bail reform. Had the Conservatives cooperated, we could have had it passed before Christmas, but they chose to obstruct. I'm glad to see that the legislation is now progressing and we could put an end to the revolving door.
Here, here. Yes.
The honourable member for Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, today Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people are meeting with government officials to discuss safety in communities impacted by resource extraction. Yet this follows a budget that included zero funding for MMIWG and the Liberals' exclusion of Indigenous women in the development of Bill C-5, despite the high rates of violence around these projects. Mr. Speaker, will the government mandate enforceable community safety plans for corporations and restore funding to address this ongoing crisis?
The Honourable Minister for Women and Gender Equality.
We owe it to survivors and those we've lost to act and prevent gender-based violence. As we advance these major projects, we're working with communities to protect women, girls, and gender-diverse people. Through our National Action Plan, we're strengthening prevention and ensuring that survivors can access those supports. This is how we ensure progress never comes at the expense of the safety of women and girls in our country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Colleagues, I would like to take a moment to bring to your attention a very important anniversary this week, the 150th anniversary of the Library of Parliament.
So we're applauding a library. Wonderful.
For 150 years, parliamentarians could count on this treasure of information, of expertise, of knowledge. I think all members of Parliament appreciate the exceptional service that the employees of the Library of Parliament provide every day. With their intelligence, their professionalism, and their innovation, this institution has evolved over the years to provide.
All right. That's enough of that. Obviously, no points of order today, which is what I was just hanging out for, but I guess that's it. So let's recap. What did they cover in question period today? Immigration. Going on with immigration. There's too much of it. OAS, again, it's going to be hammered every single day. As long as their seniors not getting their OAS checks, they are going to get hammered. Now, of course, they keep coming back and saying, oh, no, this was all costed. This was all in a budget. However, to remind people, in committee, they ask for the documentation to prove what they're saying, and they continue to deny to provide that documentation. So, can't take them at their words. However, it is interesting, though, that they did mention the number went down from 85,000 to 76,000 when they were stating figures about people who are not getting their checks. And, of course, some questions on the hopelessness that millennials and probably Gen Z are feeling in the economy, as it's disastrous. People can't get a job, can't buy a house. And now, of course, the Liberals are celebrating having to borrow money to give food stamps. They think that's a great thing. Oh, they think it's a great thing also that they're going to be providing lunches for kids when parents used to be able to do that. They used to be able to afford that before the National Socialists destroyed the economy. And so, of course, the Brockinator was in there with yet another issue regarding justice. And this was a new question from the NDP regarding sex trafficking and sexual assault issues around work sites. I see we're just a little start that. Of course, we are at the end of the stream. And, I see it was the internet that popped down. Yeah, so the NDP had an interesting question there regarding sex trafficking and sexual assault surrounding work sites. Yes, well, it's not surprising that industrious people will start selling themselves around work sites where people have a bunch of disposable cash and there's nothing else to do around in the area. And they were asking, like, there was funding apparently in the past for something regarding security and their coordination with the industries that bring in those workers in those areas. Apparently that funding's gone. And they were asking, was that funding going to come back? As usual, no answer, folks. They just said, oh, we have a bunch of services and they can contact us. There's probably a website and a link or something, right? Well, really what they're looking for is security on the ground. Well, they're not going to happen. Well, thank you so much for coming out and watching the show. I really appreciate all the viewers, all the subscribers, and those that have been watching till the very end. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Again, please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment if you can. And let's make sure that we do the proper outro. And we will do the outro with the intro. If I can get to the intro. Where do we go? Oh, there we are. Okay. You can join us back tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock for a second breakfast, or you can come back in the afternoon for the nap. Let's see you later.
Canadians are flat broke and falling behind. 57% we are reporting they have no money left at the end of the month. 4 in 10. Well, Mr. Speaker, they literally have 1 foot in the grave and 1 on a banana peel.
If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth.
Because they saw the ambition in that speech. And not only did they see it in that speech today, as the Prime Minister stood with the Premier investing in new nuclear to ensure the jobs of today and the future, they know that the youth...
The only thing that's revolting are those answers.
Speaker, we will take no lessons from these Conservatives. Trust me on that.
The Minister didn't write the Prime Minister's speech yesterday because it wouldn't have bored and depressed to tears.
It's really hard to follow, isn't it, Mr. Speaker?
All of those poor students stuck in that room. There he spoke about how they would have to sacrifice more and that it would take time to reverse all of the misery that is built up over the last 10 years. Mr. Speaker, young people want to have homes. They want to have jobs. They want to have hope. They want a budget that is affordable so they can have a life that is affordable. Will the Prime Minister introduce that budget so that Canadians can restore the promise of their country?
And we decide what comes next.
Know that this government has their back and we will continue to do this. There's going to be a powerful statement for the young people of Canada.
Deficits are driving inflation. The more Liberals spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. 25% of Canadians are using food banks because they can't afford to eat. So when will the Prime Minister finally get his inflationary deficits under control so Canadians can put food on the table?
Mr. Speaker, Conservative members pretend to care about food insecurity, but then they call feeding children garbage.
Mr. Speaker, what's garbage was that answer?
Did the Prime Minister see the ad before it went out?
Hey, of course there are too many people living in poverty in Canada, but there are significant initiatives being put in place by this government.
Being serious means being honest.
Mr. Speaker, the grand reveal has been made.
Canada's economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
Sets us up well for the new world order.
Another Liberal.
Mr. Speaker, 11 years? I just got here.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister may pretend he just got here like he's a temporary foreign worker or something, but in reality, it's the same Liberal House Leader, the same Liberal Finance Minister, the same Liberal Justice Minister who was the Immigration Minister that broke the entire system that are running it into the ground today.
Mr. Speaker, I just got here.
I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.